Hello and welcome to Mothering Unedited. I am Sarah Grace Knutson.
And I am Leanne Hulick-Reyes.
And I am Carmen West. And we are bringing you real and raw conversations that honor the mess and the magic of motherhood.
From our radically authentic hearts, we share and discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly about the things that mothers need to talk about most.
To be heard, to be supported, and to be uplifted through authentic, vulnerable connection, so we may all rise together in our motherhood journey.
Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Mothering Unedited, the real and raw conversations that honor the mess and magic of motherhood. Today, we're going to be talking about leaning into creativity. Before we start with that, I have to be real and raw. After our last session on stillness and movement, I entered into a state of grief. I was sad, and it's because I'm on a very different parenting journey than Sarah and Carmen. My girl uses a device to communicate, and so I can't always relate to Sarah and Carmen, and it put me into a wondering of who am I as a parent? What is our relationship? And how can I even do this podcast with these beautiful women? So I was so fortunate that the next day was in our community, a class on grief and loss. So this community wrapped itself around me and I processed it. It was perfect. And, I'm walking a path of sorrow and joy, maybe sorrow and gratitude, just like everybody else. So that's what we have in common. And our parenting is going to look different. So the next morning I was walking down the stairs with my girl and, still processing that grief. And I had this feeling all of a sudden in my body, she's not walking down the stairs fast enough. And then I noticed this quickly and I'm like, Leanne, quiet and calm. And so then I noticed it and then just released it and just continued down the stairs with her. And then we walked hand in hand to our car. So that is a visible evidence of my growth. And that is my number one point, is that this girl is my spiritual work. So she's reminding me daily, how do I want to be and how do I want to show up? So as I processed my grief, I wanted to share a couple of points. And so because we're not pre-recording and this is live, I wanted to offer time for Sarah and Carmen to weigh in on this one. Go ahead, ladies.
Sarah?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you so much for sharing. And just for the audience, Leanne didn't share this with us prior to us starting to record. And I think that was a brilliant and perfect and amazing idea because it means that the response I'm in the middle of having, which is like incredibly emotional and beautiful, is totally real. And so thank you, Leanne. The first thing I want to say is the fact that your parenting journey is different from ours makes this absolutely perfect. And I know you know that, but I'm just going to reiterate it because we want to have all the different perspectives that we can have. And yeah, Carmen and I have a fairly similar overall structural dynamic where our kids are about the same age and we're both like working from home, and one of the primary differences, hers go to school and mine stay home, and but other than that, a lot is really similar, so we can relate with each other. And but the bottom line is we're going to have people listening to us talk about motherhood who are in all different paradigms and dynamics, and the more different perspectives we can have, the better. And so thank you for bringing up what goes on for you in your motherhood journey, because that is really important. We want to be all encompassing and not only talking to the people who have families that look like mine and Carmen's. And I mean, there's so many different kinds. So, but thank you also for sharing the grief that you've been going through with respect to that. And I know in previous conversations a long time ago, when you and I were just birthing the idea of this podcast and hadn't even presented it to Carmen yet, we talked about having an episode on the grief of motherhood and all of the different ways that it can show up. And we've already talked about like learning to really have, oh, we lost Carmen for a second. Okay. Let's just keep going. She'll pop back in a second. Where was I? The grief of motherhood and all of the different ways that it can show up, and how important it is to talk about that so that people can realize and that we can process that whatever's going on for us in our motherhood journey doesn't necessarily look like what we thought it was going to, and that there is grief in that. And then there's some other ways that grief shows up that maybe I'll end up sharing. Maybe today will be a grief episode instead of a creativity episode, and maybe that's okay, or a combination of both, or being creative in how we process our grief. And I actually do have something I'd love to share a little bit later on that relates specifically to grieving and the different ways that we can process it. And I know we've touched on this in previous episodes already, but it bears repeating. And essentially, I would just read one of my most recent Facebook posts, which shared a very authentic and vulnerable part of my journey. So I'll leave it there for now. Hopefully Carmen pops back on soon. Maybe I'm just going to touch base.
I did see that her computer shut down. She'll be back.
Her computer shut down.
So she's on her way back in.
I'm going to let her know we're going to keep going and welcome you back when you get here.
Yeah. So that was point number one, is that there's grief. There's grief for every one of us, and it's going to look different. So we don't have to we can't fit into any other person's reality, but we do have the similarities. So I think that that's the purpose of this, is to understand that we are all walking a different path, but my perspective is that there's similarities, and then we can focus on creativity and we can focus on stillness and movement, but our days probably don't look the same. So that was my number one, is that this girl is my spiritual work, and she's giving me an opportunity to learn and grow and be different and step into the moment rather than living in the past or the future.
Beautiful. Carmen's back.
Awesome.
I am.
Glitches, computers, right? That's fine.
I actually, it's interesting, Leanne, listening to you talk about grief and your journey being different. And it actually reminds me of what I said when we started this podcast. I don't have the same experiences as you, for sure. And I also felt grief during the motherhood process, especially near to the beginning, because it didn't look to me like I thought my heart was supposed to be. I didn't show up as the mother I thought I would be. And that was a grieving process too. Grieving that, and then learning to be okay with the mother I am, and then learning to love the mother that I am.
Very nice.
Can we all just breathe into this for a moment? Learning to love the mother that I am, including everybody who's listening right now. Big deep breath, everybody together. Learning to love the mother that I am. And I'm tearing up.
Yeah.
Carmen, that's perfect. While you were popped off for a second there, what I was mentioning was all of the different ways that grief can show up in motherhood, and how important it is for us to honor it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I suggested that maybe we thought this episode was going to be about leaning into creativity, and I'm feeling like maybe it's about leaning into being creative with the way we process grief, and it's just going to be something we didn't expect. How does that sound to everybody? And Leanne still
Well,
has
I have
more
2 more points.
Yes.
So let's let this flow. And if it's going to be about grief,
Wherever it
that's
goes.
totally cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, my number 2 point is that once I finally reached a moment where I don't know how to do this mothering thing, and that's okay. And it created space for me to learn as I go, because I started thinking I was supposed to know how to do this, and my girl needed extra support with occupational therapy and speech therapy and anything else therapies you can imagine, and nobody knows how to do that, because if you haven't done it before, you don't know how to do it. So that is a really important point that I think that everybody, if we could decide we don't know how to do everything, if we haven't done it before, then that gives us an opportunity to relax.
Yeah.
And be open to learning more. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Instead of being in resistance, it's just, it welcomes so much more flow. And when we're in the flow state is when learning can happen, as you said, Carmen. And when we're in the flow state is when expansion can happen. But as long as we're in resistance, then we're not in that space.
So where flow happens, that's where creativity is.
That's
And
where creativity is. Thank you for tying it back.
yeah, that's where miracles are, and that's where fun is, because I wasn't having any fun because I didn't know how, and I felt not good enough. Okay. So my point number 3 is that I am not worthy, or I am not successful based on what I produce. Simply by being, I am enough
Right.
as a human, and if I can let go of those societal ideas that what I produce is my success, then if I can hold on to this simply by being I am enough, then if I can pass that on to her, that is a priceless gift that I can offer her.
Beautiful. Thank you, Leanne.
That's such an important lesson that, I mean, I'm just learning that too. I'm learning how to celebrate my success right where I am. See the beauty in my life, in myself, even right where I am right now. It's really important to bring to our kids and to other mothers.
And I feel so in the moments that we can't quite find the celebration, to just actually get really real with what's going on and allow it. And I actually have a story about that, if it feels like an okay time for you guys to me to shift into a story. My words are getting all jumbled up. So yesterday was incredibly challenging here because one of our kitties was missing. And the kids and I had a park day that we were going to with homeschool communities and stuff like that. And the kitties had gone outside for a little while before, but they're always right there to come back in, except when it was time to go. And they had only been out for half hour, 45 minutes. And I went to bring them in and get ready to go, and one of them wasn't there. And he's the younger one. He hasn't been outside a whole lot, and usually supervised, but he's been showing himself to be really accountable and always at the door. And so we gave a little bit more freedom. And then all of a sudden he wasn't there. And I decided in the moment that I wanted to model the ability to hold it together even when things are scary. And the kids were pretty okay with everything. They were a little concerned, but they said, well, if we just go to the park, Mom, we'll go to the park day. And when we get back, maybe he'll just be here. And I felt concerned about it because I knew we were probably going to be getting back when it was a little bit darker, because this was into the afternoon, and often the park days go long. So I had my trepidation, but I decided to just put on our brave faces and look at the bright side. And I called my husband and asked him if he could maybe come home in the afternoon and do a quick check. And we made some plans that made sense, and then we went out. But then it was 7 o'clock when the kids and I got home from the park day, and Kitty hadn't shown up. And my state started going into a really panicky state, except I didn't want to panic in front of the kids. And I actually realized after the fact that that was a mistake, because what I did was I went into resistance about the feelings that were really real for me. And I wanted to hold it together until after bedtime and then be able to just like share all my big messy feelings with my husband without needing to do it in front of the kids. And I regret it, to be honest. It did end up in the long run transforming into something beautiful. And I had some really big ahas and realizations, because I also realized in this resistance of my feelings that I was able to sort of just kind of put it off to the side until I looked at my husband. And every time I saw the stress and the worry on his face, then I started going into self-blame, and I started going into projecting that onto him. And like, if we lose our cat, he's going to blame me and all this stuff. And I was resisting having any of that even come out in front of the kids. And what ended up happening was my energy set the baseline for the whole family. And I was in this resistance of feelings. And then all of their scared feelings, they started resisting. And then they started coming out in other ways, like fighting and scratching each other and not being able to regulate themselves and control their bodies, and having all of these behaviors unfold that just made life really, really difficult. And we ended up getting to bed super, super late, and the kids were a mess and they were crying. And ultimately, I had a big messy cry in my bathroom. And then I brought everybody into my bed, and I ended up saying to them, you know what? Everybody's been having a really hard time, and I don't think it's about what we think it's about. I don't think any of our fights were about body boundaries or any of the things that they unfolded about. I think it's because we're all sad and scared about Padfoot not being home. And they both just crumbled into tears. And all of a sudden, all the real feelings could come forward. And we grieved, even though he'd only been missing for like 9 hours. And we had a big, just sort of communal big cry. And I said, you know what, guys? It's more important for us to be able to talk about this with each other than for us to hold it in and have it come out in other ways. And actually, it was my 5-year-old who said that, Mom, if we hold it in, it's going to try to come out in other ways, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, that's how it works. So we can't hold it in. If we feel sad and scared, we need to talk about it right away. And everything that happened tonight is because I didn't feel like talking about it, and you guys didn't know how. And I'm really sorry for that. And then everybody fell asleep peacefully. I did end up having a really good conversation with my husband about the part where I was like, I couldn't even hold myself together in front of you because I kept projecting my blame onto you're going to blame me. And there was all this awareness that came through when I just let go of the resistance and I surrendered to what was really going on. And then it was like midnight. It was getting super late. And I knew that we needed to just go to bed so that we could all have a beautiful day today. And I told my husband, we need to go to bed, love. And he said, no, I need to go out and walk. And this story has a really happy ending because he went out and walked. And as soon as he got home, Padfoot was sitting on the porch waiting for him. And so he walked into the house and brought him upstairs and put him in my arms, and everything was great. But like, whew, what a journey. And ultimately it was, so many messages came through to me through this journey, but it's another iteration of what I've been talking about on my social media and everything lately, which is really leaning into the grief so that we can get the blessings and get the magic that comes through when we're not in resistance, because it's surrendering to the reality of what's truly moving through my system that actually brings the magic and the gifts in my own system, and then allows me to show up in a way that brings the magic and the gifts to my children. So that's what's been real and raw for me in just the last not even 24 hours.
Wow. Wow. I think that your realizations are, again, something that's very important. Even in my own family life, we sometimes don't allow those emotions because of how we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we were taught. We were taught that, there's an appropriate time to be sad, which is, crying alone in your bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all the rest of the time when, there's not time, or we're in a public place, or and maybe it's not appropriate to completely lose it in a public place, but realizing your emotions and then moving into a space where you are safe to do that, moving your children into a space where they are safe to feel their emotions as soon as you can.
I really
It's
want to
important.
interject though and say that sometimes if it's happening, it's just happening, and letting go of that belief that this isn't the right place for this can be really liberating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet.
That's okay.
I'm moving toward that.
There's this book, Living Untethered or Untethered Soul. And if we don't let this stuff process as it happens, then there's blockages. So then we're going to have to come back and deal with it. And then the blockages keep leveling and layering up. So for us to stop and pause and feel it, like we talked about the lonely, right? And sitting still and feeling it and acknowledging it, then that is letting it flow. So then we don't end up feeling so heavy with all this baggage. Like, so what comes to my mind is that, like, I've carried so much baggage, and I'm putting it down now because it's too much heavy as we age. And so I'm just taking the lessons. So I think living authentically is letting us feel this stuff, because it's our guidance system, right? And so if we're sad or all these down emotions, they're not bad. It's just that it's telling us, it's giving us messages that we're maybe not dealing with the situation the right way, or that I don't like saying right way, but it's not what source wants us to do, like to hold on to this ick for too long. It's okay to feel ick. It's okay to be grieving. It's just that if I don't allow myself to grieve, it's going to just layer up, and then I'm going to explode and lose it. And I've already done that. I've done that so well. And it's like, it's not, that doesn't serve me. It's not working. So I need to do something else, because I'm looking for peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was in Ontario a couple of weeks ago, and I was there for a trade of services. I was helping a friend of mine, and she was helping me by doing some body work and giving me some advice on my body and those sorts of things. And we had daily sessions for actually 5 days, and she couldn't believe the first day. She was like, "You're just solid. Like, there's nothing I can't get through to you at all." And just kind of what you're talking about right now speaks to that. I mean, this is what I've learned throughout my 40 plus years of life, is that, I can feel my feelings on the inside and in my own home, and maybe that's why I stay home a lot. And I'm just now learning to trust, learning to share. It's not something that comes easily to me. By the end of the 5 days, she was able to get a little bit farther with me. But the resistance is still there. That is something that I need to work on, and also probably need help working on, you know. Sometimes we can't do it all ourselves.
We're
That
not.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, that was one of the things that I was realizing yesterday with the tendency to self-blame and then project it onto others is deep in me, and I can actually remember it all the way back into very early points in my life. And yeah, so even though like we're the helpers, but we also need help with these deep dark things. And just having done the New Earth Expo, it's a trade show that I participated in at the Belief Repatterning booth. And just having done that, one of the things I said on repeat to very many people was, learning the belief repatterning technique on your own is absolutely brilliant, and it helps you like clear the clutter in your mind space, in your soul space, in your deep emotional basement and everything. But when it comes to those big things that run deep, and that might be some of the core beliefs that are holding our resistances together and our sort of drama together, that everybody needs somebody to hold the flashlight. Everybody does. We may have absolutely exploding toolboxes full of amazing tools, but when it comes to those things, I don't want to be holding my own flashlight and holding my own hand. I want to learn how to hold my own hand. I know how really well how to hold my own hand. But when it comes to those really vulnerable things, we all need help. We need each other. That's one of the reasons we're doing this together.
It is. And I also feel like when we feel like we need to hold our own flashlight all of the time, we forget that other people are also going through this
Yeah.
right now.
And it reminds me of an infinity loop. So if you're only holding the flashlight and you're not open to receiving light back, that's where then you're not able to learn and grow as much, right? Because it's like sometimes the flashlight's heavy, okay? And we mothers are responsible for the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health of your family. Let's call it what it is, your
Yep.
child, your partner, and you're the leader. So it's important, and it's a big responsibility, and we can do it, but we're not meant to do it alone. We're
No,
here
we're
to
not
help.
meant to do it alone. And I want to make sure that for anybody listening, that the word responsibility itself doesn't feel heavy, because it can. I actually recently did, I think I can't actually remember right now if it was a client's repatterning or my own repatterning, where instead of shifting from one sort of icky feeling to another really awesome feeling, what I actually was doing was shifting the word responsibility from the downside to the upside, because the word responsibility was feeling heavy in that moment, but shifting it to like my ability to respond
Yes.
instead of stuff that I have to take care of. It's just like it's such a different energy to it, right? So sometimes that's one of those words that, even though it sounds like it's in our books, it's on the upside, but it's one of the ones that sometimes we need to bring from the downside to the upside, because it can have so much wrapped up in it. Another one that falls into that category for me is the word hero or heroic.
Oh yeah.
Because I've definitely tried to be the hero mom from a way that was totally draining, but have over time trained myself to just recognize that I don't need to be the hero, but when I'm in a state of wellness that allows me to shine, then the things that transpire are heroic. And acknowledging that in a way that's loving and but also humble.
And I just want to say that, like, the responsibility is our spiritual work. So we've been given these beautiful families, and it is our spiritual work. So it is actually like my child is my guide. She is my spiritual teacher. So looking at that, like, I can learn from her. So then it is not. It's a different spin on it. And as we, like, release that programming, you've mentioned this before, Sarah, like, as we unlearn the programming, then we're freeing ourselves. So our children are here to teach us, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, especially in these times, because there's such a focus on, I'm going to say cycle breaking, and then I'm going to also mention that I recently saw a beautiful meme on Instagram. I sorry, can't remember who it was from, but that said, I'm not a cycle breaker anymore. I'm a cycle starter. And
Ooh.
that was really nice. Although I feel like I still want to mention both.
Yeah.
I don't want it to only be about what it is I'm walking away from. Of course, I want to put more emphasis and focus on what it is that we're creating. But I still feel like only focusing on I'm a cycle starter could potentially be bypassing what it is that we're actually transforming here.
There's a reason vehicles have a rear view mirror.
Yeah.
And there's a reason it's so small.
And I like and that honors the ending and beginnings, right? Because every mama's been doing the best job she can.
Yeah.
Every mama, every father, like, we're doing the best we can. So as we learn and grow from our children, and from receiving the light and shining the light, that's how we can learn and grow.
Beautiful. Carmen, I would love for you to expound on that for a moment, because I know that Leanne and I have already heard the rearview mirror thing before, but many of our listeners maybe have not. So I'd love for you to just explain exactly what it is that you said and why.
Sure. So when we're driving in our vehicle, we do have a rear view mirror because it's important to know what's behind us. It's important to see what's behind us. And it's also quite a small piece of our vision, so that we can be looking forward most of the time, while keeping our past still in mind, in view, and learning from it. We can move forward with that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And from a growth perspective, when we're on a growth journey of any kind, healing, personal development, all of those things, it's sometimes a little bit too easy to forget where we came from, because every moment I'm in my normal right now. And it might be easy for me to forget that my normal from 3 weeks ago felt totally different than my normal from today. If I've grown a whole bunch all the time, we're just in the present moment. And so taking that few seconds to look back and go, wow, look where I came from. Look how far I've come, is super duper important. But it's only
Little
that big in my vision, because all of this is more important. Yeah, totally. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank
Well, and I love that too. I actually love that. I love about journaling that exact thing. I know that in the believer patterning program, we do this thing. We celebrate our accomplishments, and we'll write down our accomplishment for the day, and our accomplishment for the week, and our accomplishment for the, like, just any accomplishment for the month, and for the quarter, and for the year. And even just taking that sheet of maybe 5 sentences, and, the following week, just, taking a look at it, just taking a look at where I was a week ago. These were my accomplishments a week ago. Now where am I at? Now what are my accomplishments? And maybe they'll be bigger, and maybe they'll be smaller, and they're all accomplishments. And it's just a nice way to look back at where we were, or journaling, or
I
something
like doing the
that.
same thing with gratitude journals, of just picking one up from a year or so ago and being like, what was I grateful for then? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, have you ever seen, you guys, have you ever seen, I have one here. It's 1 line a day for 5 years. And so each day of the year, it's a journal, and each day of the year has a page. And then you put in the year and you write a sentence. And then you turn the page to the next day. So then the following year, when you come back to that page, you get to look at what happened last year on that day. They're really, really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I was given a gratitude journal like that. I think it was actually what got me started doing that, of looking back at the previous ones. So the interesting thing is I think I did it for like 2 years and then fell off with that particular journal. So it would be, and that was quite a while ago. It's still sitting above my bed in the same spot. So I should go back to it and start again from wherever I am in the year right now, and it'll have gratitudes in it from like when Caius was a baby.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
The other gratitude journal that started me on this, that really helped me, someone created it. I don't know. You can find it in Indigo, and it was like, right in the mornings, 3 things you're grateful for, and then what would make this day amazing. And then at the end of the day, you write 3 amazing things that happened in your day and 1 thing that you wish you could have done better. So that was really instrumental in changing my direction in my life.
You know what it reminds me of? Oh, not the companion journal. Sorry, the 365 belief repatterning calendar, where you because people that have been listening here know that we sometimes pull a word every day. I say sometimes because the intention is that I do it all the time, but I don't end up doing it all the time. We pull a word for the day, and then if we're doing it in the morning, we can say, how might this show up for me today? And then in the evening, go back to the journal and say, how did my word show up for me today? And it's just reinforcing that word in your subconscious mind in the same way as when you buy a blue car, you see the blue car everywhere, right? Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Carmen.
I was just going to share my word for today was connected, and I thought that was really a great word. So go ahead, Leanne.
My word was open. I wanted to share this with you, and I didn't want to be full of tears, so that I could at least talk. So I am so grateful to myself and proud of myself that, now I can talk about this. And as I own my path, it's healing. So I'm very grateful to be sharing the real and raw, because it's helping me strengthen and own my path and create space for fun. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
I would like to acknowledge that all 3 of us have been on the verge of tears at some point in this conversation so far. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know, and before I used to be crying so much I couldn't even speak, I couldn't make a point. So yeah, so it's about feeling this, having the emotion, and yet still feeling hope and positivity. Yeah, so it's about just like interweaving the sorrow and the gratitude, I'd say, and the joy.
You know what? That is the perfect moment. The interweaving of the sorrow and the gratitude. I would like to read something for everybody that speaks exactly to that. And it's the post that I just posted on Facebook. Give me a quick moment here while I pull up my Facebook profile on my phone, and so I can read it to you guys. I realized the other day, halfway through the month, that it is Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. It suddenly was everywhere on my feed, and even though for the previous 2 weeks before that, I hadn't had any idea. So I wrote a blurb about my feelings about that, because it's also what I just wrote a chapter about. And I had shared in the podcast here that I've written a chapter, but I didn't tell everybody what it's about yet. So I'm just going to share my post from Facebook here, because that'll explain everything, but also the interweaving of the sorrow and gratitude at the same time. There's something I haven't shared publicly, but I just found out that it's Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, so I guess it's time. I recently shared with everyone that I'm quite pregnant. Big celebrations all around, and please rest assured my current pregnancy is healthy and thriving. But I didn't tell you about the journey to get here. After trying to conceive for a year, we were about to let it go when suddenly I was carrying the most beautiful soul. I could feel her changing me from the inside out immediately. Her energy was all peace and bliss. I was a calmer human. For 12 weeks, I was blessed to carry her with me. On March 6th, 2024, she left my body. I haven't shared about it because the experience was so huge and deeply profound that no platform has enough words to encompass the depth of what I went through. Seriously, I tried to fit it into a 4,000 word chapter and I wrote over 8,000. Profound loss, yes. Deep grief, questions innumerable, yes. Doubt, fear, blame, yes. Rage, despair, sorrow, yes, yes, yes. But there was something else. Profound peace, yes. Divine connection, yes. Transcendent awareness of love, faith in a grander purpose, incredible healing, yes, yes, yes. A rebirth of me as a woman and a mother into a more whole and more complete version of myself, yes. Visions came to me, direct communication with the beautiful soul, who we've now called Feather. I know in my bones and depth of my soul that she was never meant to come all the way earthside. I feel deeply and profoundly that her purpose was to deliver light codes and healing to my womb space and my whole being to prepare me for what is next. By no means does this bypass the pain and sorrow that we went through, but I came to realize that no coin is one-sided. Grief is laden with magic and rebirth. Opportunities for authentic humanness and unconditional love pour through. And this is why we cannot ignore and run away from talking about things like pregnancy loss. By blocking any part of it, we cut ourselves off from the wholeness of life, including the magical parts. I will not say to any other mother that everything happens for a reason, because I know how trite and inconsiderate that sounds to any person who is immersed in the sorrow of loss. However, in my own journey, which is my own, I am 100% sure that there was a clear purpose to this experience. Soul-level gifts, transformation, and a driving desire in me now to start shifting the way that we as humans experience and see grief. I have come to know that when we lean fully into the experience and when we are surrounded by people who are ready and willing to hear us and receive our feelings in their wholeness, there can be profound healing, magic, and peace in loss. I have also come to know that absolutely no one should have to go through it alone, and the societal pattern of avoiding the topic must end. What I needed to know when I was going through it was that I was loved beyond measure, that it wasn't my fault, I hadn't done anything wrong, I wasn't broken, and that everything was going to be okay. Fortunately, I was and am blessed to have a community of women around me who were beyond supportive and loving, who dropped food off on my doorstep and sent me beautiful bereavement gifts, and who listened and shared in my journey unwaveringly. Be that friend next time you know someone who's experiencing pregnancy or infant loss. Find the courage to move past your own discomfort about it and be real, authentically vulnerable, and just cry with them. If you don't know what to say, don't say something cliche. Just say, I don't know what to say, and be real about it. I promise it will be more meaningful than some societally prescribed and overly repeated thing. Just tell them you love them. As for my own journey, I've become wildly passionate about exploring the journey of loss and grief, finding the phoenix in the ashes and discovering what cycles are birthing as another one ends. It has captured me completely. You will be hearing me talk about this more over the next months. Self-love, inner light, the wholeness of loss, and the cycles of rebirth. These are my jam. So it didn't feel like we should finish this episode today without bringing that in, because we keep talking about everything that I put in there. So,
Yeah.
Thank
now
you.
we all have cried.
Yeah.
And
Thank
that's great.
for being real and raw and sharing your authentic heart. And so this is what we're doing here, real and raw.
Beautifully said. Thank
And
you.
creative Today was going to be about creativity, and I still feel it has been.
Yeah. Let's just breathe one more about that, about mamas. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
One thing that you did say was that you said you knew you were going to be okay. Long, long ago, when I was that early mama, I didn't know I was going to be okay.
Mhm.
I was reaching out to my poor husband and asking him if everything was going to be okay, because I didn't have it inside of me. And now I do. And so it was beautiful to hear you say that you're going to be okay. So my phrase that I wish I could have said to a younger version of myself is that, oh, dear Leanne, it is going to be okay. It may not be the okay that you imagined, and yet somehow it's going to be okay. If you are willing to learn and grow, it can be better than okay. So that would be beautiful for all of us, every human, to be able to learn, to find it in ourselves, to know we're going to be okay. And when we can do that for ourselves, then it just flows, it just ripples out to our children. And that is exactly what we want for them.
Yeah, and as you're sharing that, I'm thinking that if I had gone through the experience of a pregnancy loss earlier in my journey, I probably wouldn't have known that I was going to be okay, that it was all that it would unfold in a way that was just okay. Yeah, I mean, that's really the word for it at this point. So I mean, I'm grateful that it happened now after all of this growth. And I fully acknowledge that there's a lot of people that it happens for that don't get to know that in the moment. And I mean, that's why I do what I do. Because I want everybody to know we're all going to be okay. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you, both of you.
Anyways, I'm kind of tired of being so emotional. So
Let's move on. Let's move through. Let's transform it.
yeah, let's transform it. So where are we going now? Let's end on something uplifting.
Well, I would like to say I'm so grateful for all of the lessons, even while both of you are talking about your own journeys. Some of the lessons that have come through for me, something that I've said to myself a lot, being a mom of two young kids, is this is just a phase, this is just a stage. And while that helps me to get through the day, that doesn't help me in the way that you both just explained. And this is not just a phase or a stage. I am a mom. I'm a mom forever now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I get to choose how I show up every day. And some days it's not going to be great. And some days I'm going to remember that I'm going to be okay, even if it's hard. And some days are going to be amazing, like so amazing.
And Carmen, some days are going to have the moments that are super not great, like mine did last night when I was in all that resistance. And then all of a sudden, the wisdom to transform it is just going to come through.
Yeah.
Because it's in there. It's just not in there when we're in the panic state. I mean, it's still in there, but it's not showing up when we're in the panic state.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you both so much for this. Thank you for everyone who's listening.
Mhm.
This has been a transformative talk for me. Thank you.
For me too. I am so grateful to myself for finding my brave and being ready to come and share my true, authentic self. So thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. I've been tingling for 20 straight minutes. And that's always a good thing. I wrote recently in something, I wrote, if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's always follow the tingles, which has been basically the most transformative thing I've ever decided to start doing. If I'm tingling, I'm in the right place. So thank you for being in the right place with me, Carmen and Leanne, and everybody who is with us.
I think that's a beautiful place to call this completion. So thank you very much for joining us today in our full-on real and raw. And we look forward to talking more. And we don't know what's going to happen next time. It might be creativity, but you know, we'll know when we know. We'll know when it happens. So thank you.
We'll know when we know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Mothering Unedited. We are so grateful to have you here with us and are excited to connect with you in whatever way works for you, whether that's through one-on-one coaching or exploring the other works we have created and continue to offer mothers, parents, and the world. Follow us on Instagram at mothering_unedited. To find out more or connect further with any of us, you'll find Sarah at soulbirth.ca, soul-birth.ca. Leanne at coachingwithleanne.org, coachingwithleanne.org, and Carmen at carmenwist.com, carmenwiste.com. Until next time, may you find your brave to share your unedited authenticity and honor yourself through the mess and the magic of motherhood.